All right, hello everyone. I'm Nate and welcome to my channel. Today I have the privilege of talking about the first real yo-yo endeavor from Lathed Back Designs. And if you recall, not too long ago, I actually reviewed one of their Beglery, a really cool design that kind of was like combining sort of the inspiration of kendama with Beglery, and it was really cool. So if you've not checked that out, I have a link in the description to that video if you're interested in that. But this is a mini titanium yo-yo, and it's in a really cool package. So we're going to talk about that. This is called the Bangarang. All right. So Lathed Back Design is out of Canada, and so these are actually completely made in Canada with, you know, Canadian parts and all that stuff. And I loved the packaging, the 3D packaging from the quantum colliders. That was the Beglery kendama sort of thing that I was talking about. And this is so cool. This is really cool. And so all right. So first off, the cover here has, you know, it says what it is. It's Lathed Back Designs, and then it has Bangarang on there and all that stuff. And then it slides open. And then on the back here, after I slide it open, it has it numbered as well, and his signature and all that stuff. So yeah, pretty cool. So pops right out, slides right out. And then I'm gonna have to try to tip it without, you know, knocking it out here. But so here you go. It has this look of a, you know, old ghetto blaster sort of boombox sort of thing. Really cool, right? Yeah, so there you are. So each piece, it has its own little compartment there, and then it has 3 different types of bearings as well, and then it has the axle there, and it's just, everything has its own little spot. I'm gonna put the cover back on, because in addition, below here, on the bottom here, we have actually a bearing removal tool. This is an A-size bearing. For it being a micro yo-yo, that's a really good choice. If I can get it out, it is pretty tight. So what you can do with that is then it can go right in that top hole there and give it even like an antenna sort of look here. So, but that's actually a bearing removal tool. So you can use that. So everything's very functional and it's pretty cool. I think that's really rad. And you can insert that back in when you're ready for it. So this is a nice little travel case for it. Yeah, it's well thought out. And it's going to make it worth the money as far as that unpackaging or that unboxing experience. This is going to be a joy to do that. In addition, we're going to talk about the rings that came with it, or the hubs. So this kind of makes it more of a full-size yo-yo. But let's actually get into the yo-yo itself and go ahead and assemble it. It's almost easier to kind of just flip it upside down, I've found, and just kind of dump everything in your hand or on a table or whatever. Yeah, so we have the pads on here, or not, they're not pads, it's flowable silicone. It's from it's the monkey snot from Monkey Finger. So that's been well done and nice and recessed and just right. A-size bearing, like I said, it comes with a couple different options here. It has an A-size bearing that is also like ready to be fixed axle. And so that has, it's not, you know, an actual bearing, it's just kind of like just a little insert there, and so that makes it completely fixed. So that's unique. I have one from a while back that, shoot, what's the company that made it? But it's a C-size bearing option, and that's kind of what this is, but this is specially machined for A-size bearing. Has a little axle in there, we'll put that in there. The shape of it, I would say, is an H shape. But man, look how tiny that is. It's little. It's so little. All right. So it's definitely meant to be, you know, more of it's meant to be not a gimmick is not the right word when it comes to something this precision, because I feel like that's kind of a throwaway word. But I would say this is definitely a collector's sort of yo-yo. It's a lot of fun, and it's going to play really well. But I think it's really going to appeal to people who have a little bit of everything already in their collection. He anodizes them in-house, so everything's kind of like very boutique. You know, even the case, obviously, we talked about that, and the anodizing and everything. I mean, everything's really well thought out. So, you know, you can talk about the price point, but I really think it's going to be worth your price if you're wanting to spend it, right? In the box, we have a couple different other bearing options. Right now, I have it loaded up with a concave A-size bearing, and it's unresponsive, so it's, you know, gonna need a bind and so on. But then we have this one here in the center. That's the one I was talking about, that's just kind of like meant to be fixed. It's not an actual bearing, but just kind of a spacer in there. And then this one over here is a this is where you're actually going to need this tool to get these out, by the way. This one is a thin, so half spec A bearing. So this is meant for, you can still do tug responsive. It does have little spikes on it, and I like the fact that it has spikes because it gives it an extra fun factor. You're going to be able to matador with this. These are spikes that are long enough that you could do that, and you can kind of finger spin with that if you wanted after you matador, or you can pull start or whatever. It is a nice little shape though. So it's an H shape-ish, right? So yeah, really nice. And then these are the 3D printed hubs, and they were designed with a little rubber gasket there, ring there, and then they clip. They're very, very easy to pop on, and they're pretty solid, and they just go on the end just like that. So he's designed them to be like that, and then you can pop the other one on as well. And that kind of makes it basically a full-size regular yo-yo. Of course, that's going to have some vibe to it, right? Just a little bit, just because of the material, but it's not probably going to be too bad. All right, we'll talk about that obviously. But anyways, honestly, let's just go play it and see how it plays on the string. Let's do that. One thing I forgot to mention is the string type that would be recommended for this, because it is a micro yo-yo and the gap is smaller and the bearing is smaller. You certainly want a thin string. Something like kitty thin would be fine as well. Something along those lines that would fit in this gap a little bit easier. So it's a light yo-yo too, which, you know, one of the things that micro yo-yos oftentimes kind of feel like is just that they're just way too sluggish for their diameter. It's like, it's kind of hard to find that ratio of like, you want something that's going to have enough power so that it will actually spin okay, and something that's not going to be too heavy, because it's very easily feels like a brick because of this, you know, just the actual measurements of it. So this is not a heavy yo-yo. It's very light and just kind of funky. It just feels weird. Play this for a little while and then pick up just an ordinary weighted yo-yo, and it's just going to feel really foreign to you. So right now I have it with the you know, the regular concave A bearing that is unresponsive. So I am needing to bind, and I would say that on a bind you need to be still a little bit conservative. I wouldn't like do like probably any risky binds at first, because it still kind of has a little bit of that reach for it because of the size of it and just what you can control. So I'd be very conservative about your binds. I wouldn't necessarily kind of do those throwaway binds. Even then, I feel like it kind of wraps up a little bit funky. So my go-to is just kind of just to make sure that you have a really just simple bind so that it comes up to the hand. All right, so make sure you're very deliberate about your binds and you should have no problem. It's a little bit more of a novelty, right? So it's not that yo-yo you're probably going to pick up for like this huge session, or you're certainly not going to want to compete with this yo-yo, but this is a yo-yo that you'd have no problem throwing in your pocket and probably forget that you put it there because it's so tiny, and just to have on you, right? It's going to be a really great EDC yo-yo as well, right? It's going to look great with anybody who, especially if you like titanium stuff like myself, it's going to look great with all your titanium. It actually plays really well. It plays pretty stable for what it is. That H shape probably helps a little bit. But just the titanium in general, it definitely feels as a premium value to it. Even though it's tiny, even though it's kind of novelty, it still has a very premium feel to it. And as far as like Smoothness, it's dead smooth. Like I said, it comes with a couple different bearing options, but before we do that, I'm gonna go ahead and throw on the 3D printed hubs to make this a much larger yo-yo and see how that plays with the unresponsive sort of feel to it. So I have them in my pocket here. They're really easy to pop on. They have those little rubber rings there, and they're actually pretty stable. Now, if you could like whack this off the ground, it probably might pop off or kind of get a little bit loose. So you just wanna make sure that they're square on there and that they're pressed in nice and tight. This feels a lot more like a regular yo-yo. He had suggested kind of doing some off string too with it. It's not quite probably large enough to do like a lot of off string in my opinion. Again, I don't really do off string. I know a little bit, but it does come with that responsive bearing option. That's a half spec bearing. You could use that for, you could use that for responsive yo-yo as well, which I'm gonna do. But this feels really nice. It's actually pretty smooth. It's gonna vibe when you go to do that nail test, but on the string, you don't feel it. So it plays really solid, and it's a really cool option just to have that. And it just looks pretty rad. Yeah, I could push this yo-yo a lot more than I would be able to with just the standard. But honestly, if I was to throw it in my pocket, I would probably take these and just pop them off and just have those separately, and then just kind of hold this and I could, mess with that as I needed to. But really, really fun. All right, let's go ahead and switch out the bearing for that responsive setup, and then we'll also try the fixed axle response as well. So let's go ahead and change that out. All right, I recommend, again, using the little bearing removal tool to get them out of the box even. I think it's just helpful. I'm even struggling with it now, so you might have to tip it like that. And that's easier to pop out instead of just tipping it and probably losing it on the ground like I would probably do right now. The half spec bearing, so it'll be tug responsive, and it's de-shielded, so if you needed to kind of throw some extra, thick lube or something like that, or grease it up, you could do that and it would be easier to do. So this one's it's not very greased up. So I'm actually gonna go back inside. I'm gonna get some of my Yomega lube here inside, and I'm gonna add a couple drops to that, probably just one. But it's not quite out of the box. It's still kind of unresponsive. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. I'll be right back. Is seriously from the 90s. I've had it since I was a kid, back in the boom of the 90s. So I'm just gonna you can seriously make any bearings responsive with this, with like 1 or 2 drops. It doesn't take much at all. This stuff is awesome. It's got Teflon in it. So you could also use like a grease or something like that as well, and that should do it. But if you have some thick lube around, yeah, there we go. That's much better. I actually really like that feel a little bit more than having it being unresponsive, because it's a little bit more consistent with the tug. So this is the truly fixed axle option. It's essentially the same width as a half spec A bearing, but without any bearings. So it's just a piece of metal, right? It just looks kind of like a thick washer almost. So we're gonna try that and see how that does for us. If I can actually get this string apart, like I've never done this before, right? Struggle bus. Okay, all right. Okay, so there we go. All right, now I'm just looping it around once, so we'll see how. All right, that's a lot of fun. This is not gonna probably do too much. I mean, like, I don't know, let's try to do it's weird to try to do like an actual fixed axle trick, like a stall or something. Yeah, it's not got a lot of control for that. Let's go ahead and put in the hubs here, and then we'll see how that plays with the fixed axle version, because I think that'll help. All right, so I have that fixed axle bearing in here, which again, I think is a really cool option. It just gives you a lot of just versatility and more fun factor with this tiny, 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 tiny titanium yo-yo. See how that plays. So that's going to probably be a little bit more conducive to stalls, yes. So if you want a fully fixed axle, you want to impress your friends, you know, again, it's not going to have good spin times at all, right? If you're wanting to do kind of more traditional fixed axle play, I would recommend putting the hubs on there. It's not a high wall yo-yo, so it's going to kind of, you know, maybe not be the best for fixed axle play in general. Yeah, that actually works really well for fixed. Yeah, that's enjoyable too. Again, I don't feel like I would probably play this fixed with just this without these hubs. I feel like it plays a lot better. So I feel like it has a little more control. Gives that little extra weight that you probably need to really kind of have full control of it. But yeah, it's very capable of being a decent fixed axle yo-yo. Even with a wider H-shaped gap, it works really well. It is not for everybody, okay? It's certainly got a price tag that's probably not for everybody either. But there's a lot that has to go into a yo-yo like this. So considering the fact that it's all made basically in-house, it's made in Canada, it's not outsourced, the price tag makes sense to me, right? Again, this is not gonna be for everybody. He didn't mass produce this either. And they're very limited, they're numbered, right? So this is gonna be for collectors. This is gonna be for people who want just a different yo-yo, right? Maybe people who collect mini yo-yos, for instance. You're probably gonna wanna get this yo-yo for sure. It has that EDC quality to it as well for those who really like titanium especially. And so I think it's gonna appeal to them as well. But it's got, again, precision, like it's, with the packaging, with everything that you're getting from it, it is premium, right? So I believe if you're able to pay for it, you know, that's gonna be up to you, whether you can justify the price or not. Titanium yo-yos are not cheap in general, right? And it doesn't mean just because it's smaller that it's actually gonna be cheaper, right, than a full-size titanium yo-yo. So overall, I'm really actually very pleased with this yo-yo. It's a lot of fun. And just the whole unboxing experience with it was really a joy as well. And so I highly recommend it. If you've not checked out Lathed Back Designs, go over to their site, check out some of the different color anodizations as well. They're all kind of limited and really unique. And make sure you check out the Quantum Collider as well. That's a really cool beglery option. That's, again, they're doing things that are unique and different and outside the box. And I always appreciate that. So, all right, that's gonna do it for now for my review of the Bangarang from Lathed Back Designs. Until the next one, later.